Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. Today's episode is 186. I'm Oscar Minks, joined as always by the one and only Brad Nye. Hey, Brad, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. It's nice out today. I'm enjoying it. We had like 90s and upper 90s and bad storms that knocked out the power and internet, and today's like 78 and sunny.
Nice. Yeah,
So
you
I'll
can't
take this
beat that.
weather over that.
Yeah, for sure, much better. It's hot and humid here, steamy. Hoping we get a break from the rain. We're supposed to get some more showers. Had a small one this morning, but I'm not sure if a lot of our listeners are aware there was some devastating floods in my neck of the woods, my hometown of Eastern
Yeah,
Kentucky, and uh,
I was thinking of
yeah,
you
it's been
guys.
pretty bad. There's lots of folks without homes now. We've had a lot of unfortunate life loss, and there are still missing people right now. So,
Yeah.
um,
So it's like
if any of our listeners
two.
are unaware of that, I would say maybe check that out, educate yourself a little bit on there. There's a lot of people that could use help, and if you have anything, $5 or anything that could help, it would go a long way for these people that are suffering
Yeah,
today.
yeah, two 1 in 1,000 year rainstorms in a week. Like I was reading
Yeah,
one
it
of them
was
at like 8 or 9
intense.
inches in 12 hours.
One specific area I know in Eastern Kentucky, they had 10 inches of rain in 5.5 hours.
That's
And
unbelievable.
yeah, there's a lot of challenges associated with that too, where we'd had an unseasonably dry summer before that. And so um, our ground wasn't already
Mm,
saturated at all, which people would think would be good because it has opportunity to saturate. But the problem is the ground becomes so dry and so hard that it treats that initial rain like an asphalt runoff almost.
yeah.
So the ground isn't doing its job of soaking that water up and the water runs off, which increases flooding. And then a lot of the areas that were devastated were former coal mining towns and areas where a lot of the natural vegetation and the natural flow
Mm,
of streams had been changed, and the vegetation hasn't returned to a flourishing uh,
yeah.
state yet. And so there
Uh,
was a lot of things: the rain,
well,
the
when you're
preceding
mountainous with a lot
drought.
of valleys and concentration
Yeah,
points, yeah, that's
yep,
tough.
yeah, it's tough. So thoughts and prayers to everyone up there right now, and my condolences too to everyone who's suffered loss of life. We absolutely hate to hear that; it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, today's topic, we're going to dig into the FTC safeguards and some recent, as of in the last 12 months, changes to the FTC Safeguards Rule. They put out an updated December of last year. Those changes are about to go into effect for a lot of people. So we thought we would talk through that, try to educate some folks today that may be impacted, maybe they're not even aware. And if you are, maybe we'll give you some good information on how to prepare for that, what you can do. But first, maybe cool happenings in the news or something that piqued your interest. You got anything for us, Brad?
Yeah, yeah. I'll start with on InfoSec or InfoSecurity magazine. They came out with an article today, compliance for security, a look into passwords, and basically it's what we've been preaching forever of compliance does not equal secure. And it even says relying on compliant passwords does not protect your network. Yeah, well, duh. So they looked into Nist, High Trust, PCI DSS, the Information Commissioner's Office for GDPR, and National Cybersecurity Center's Cyber Essentials. Um, and they did an analysis of 800 million compromised passwords. And they, you're looking at the longest one is the GDPR, which is 10 characters. And when they did the search, they found 78% of the compromised passwords that were, uh, I'm sorry, miscompliance passwords, 78% of the compromised were hit the compliance level. 59% of
Yeah.
PCI, 57, 43, 83. So the longer the password, the more complex, again, passphrases, think of that. Um, multi-factor, but don't just assume that. Well, we're meeting the NIST standard. That doesn't mean it's like builder grade. Doesn't mean, yes, it meets the bare minimum, but doesn't mean it's the best.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's something I think we talk about a lot here at FRSecure. Um, and just for the perfect example, one of our favorite passwords is the season, the year, and a special character.
I
So
mean,
technically, summer 2022 with an exclamation point and a capital S meets all those requirements. Also, it's a very uh, easily to guess password.
I can't tell the story enough of, I did a security awareness training, and it was like, spring and the year, and a couple other well-known ones, and somebody came up afterwards and said, so if I saw my password on your presentation, I should change it. And I was like, yes, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. Please change that immediately. Yeah.
Uh,
I'm a fan of, passphrases are really good. We talk about that. Um, I'm just a fan of non-human rememberable passwords, right?
Password managers are the
So
way to go.
truly, yeah, truly random alphanumeric. And I think we talked about that just a couple of weeks ago. And um, anything that's human rememberable is theoretically guessable. Now, if you add significant length through that, right, the challenge does become more challenging. But at the end of the day, um, there's still a lot of guessable passwords that meet those compliance
Mm-hmm.
requirements.
Yeah. Yep. Fun. Nice to see other people
Yeah,
finally
yeah,
coming around.
yeah. Happy to see that in the news too, and hopefully people take count and listen. Yeah, I guess my news story is I'm not sure if you guys have been following this, any of our listeners has, but they're working on Nist is currently working on post quantum encryption standards. And just a couple of weeks ago, they released the three finalists and their one alternate, and then they had essentially four other alternates in case there were flaws discovered in the top four. This study has been going on for a long time, right? And so it started in 2017 with 69 candidates. Over the course of 5 years, they were able to dwindle that down to the finals. And news broke recently that Psych, which is one of the NIST designated PQC candidates, was essentially cracked. Cracked using simple methods as well. A non-quantum computer was able to crack this standard using a single CPU. And it's just really interesting to me. I think that as we move into the world of quantum, this highlights a lot of what we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know quantum is in the future, but I'm not sure how distant that future is today. And these things are going to become more and more of a reality, and we're going to start to deal with more and more challenges of how we secure in that quantum computing world. I think the biggest challenge is here. There's still probably a fundamental disconnect in the overall understanding of quantum, and even a lot of the practitioners that are working today to implement these encryption standards may not fully understand quantum.
Yeah.
I think, Brad, you called out specifically in that article
Yeah.
that one of the creators had mentioned maybe a misunderstanding of the mathematics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give him full. I don't know if Zhao. I don't know what his first name was, but one of the co-inventors. I'll give him full credit for being transparent and accepting it. But
Mm-hmm.
he said basically that there's a lot of deep mathematics that is not well understood by cryptographers.
Mm-hmm.
I work on cryptography, but don't understand mathematics, and all it takes is somebody to recognize the applicability of an existing theoretical math to these new crypto systems.
Right.
So that's a really good, insightful point of, yeah, just because you do cryptography, that doesn't mean it's not crackable. You got to look at it.
Yeah, and it's a different
It's a
field.
math. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We're playing in a whole new, maybe not even just a different field. It's a whole new game now when we look
Mm-hmm.
at quantum computing. And so, but I think this is possibly a good thing. And he does mention to one of the co-inventors that this shows us we still need to be cautious and conservative as our standardization process moving forward. And I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of speed bumps as we head down this path. And this is probably the first of many that we'll see that are similar here. And hopefully that we have the right individuals leading these standardization processes to be aware of that and to be diligent and to be cautious as we move forward into a whole new world.
Yeah, yeah. Don't rush headlong.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, for
maybe,
sure.
maybe get the basics done first.
Yeah, the basics. Educate everyone on what quantum is. Go.
There you go. Right. Uh, the other one, real quick. I'm not going to go into in depth, but it's on Project Hyphae. Hyphae. Yeah, I messed that one up. Um, VMware released a critical 9.8 bug. Nice little write up about that if you're running VMware, get it patched.
Yeah, and this is in the VMware Workstation One
Yeah,
console, I believe, and it is remote authorization bypass, and can lead to RCEs. This is just like I feel like every couple of weeks now. This
I
year's
know.
been a lot of VMware related vulnerabilities. Uh,
I don't keep up with some of the chat of those guys that write those, so I threw it in there like another day, another execution bypass, and they're like,
yeah.
"You even, bro?" And threw me the link. I was like, "Oh, my bad." All over it.
Yeah, that's all right. It happens. There's so many of them. All right.
I know.
Yeah, everybody patch that. If you don't have to put that on the internet, don't put it on the internet. There are other means, like we've talked about in recent episodes, setting up VPN access to your virtual environment
Weird.
rather than posting that publicly. Yep, it's all relatable, it seems. All right, so the FTC safeguards. What do you know about it, Brad?
Uh, so it's been around a while, but they
Yeah,
finally updated it.
yeah,
We were
like
talking,
since first update since 2003, right?
you know, well, and what I will give them credit for, unlike a lot of these other rules, is it was fairly vague, but had
Mm-hmm.
good like guidelines around it. So they didn't.
Yeah,
It wasn't limited to specific technology. It was pretty well written in terms of being, standing the test of time. But
mm-hmm.
it was definitely due to be tweaked. Um, but realistically, the safeguards rule is your basic best practices. I mean,
Right.
do a risk assessment, have a written information security plan, uh, asset management, vendor management, access controls, multi-factor, data
Train your
management.
staff. Have an instant
Yeah,
response plan.
yeah. So, there's really not anything like super secret. It is the basics that we are saying, hey, you got to do these things. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess the biggest change this year, and there was a couple, but the biggest one is it now includes what they call finders. So I think the biggest example for
Yeah.
me, it's easiest, is auto dealerships. Right? They put the
Right. Maybe we
financing of
explain to people, if you could, like what a finder is, because
yeah,
that's something we were talking about before. Because it can be a little confusing to people, and so
yeah,
maybe explain to folks what is a finder.
yeah, and again, I think using the dealerships is the easiest to explain, but there's others. But
Hmm.
it's basically a middleman that's going to put a financial institution in touch with a consumer. So in the case of a
Right.
dealership, they're going to act as the middleman, get all the information from the consumer, and then go out and shop the rate, get the best rate they can. They don't actually do the financial transaction. They're not lending the money, but they act as an in between and have all that information.
Right. They find the buyer and the seller, and then they find the money. Right. They find the
Yep.
funding. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so auto dealers is the big one. We were studying this a little bit, but there are some other ones that were a little
mhm.
bit surprising to me. But when we think through the logic, it does make sense. Real estate appraisers was in that list. That one was a little confusing to me, but mortgage brokers are there. That makes obvious sense to me, right?
Mhm.
Then we had even career counselors that worked in the financial business. If you're in check printing business, you're going to fall under this amendment now. Check cashing businesses. So I would assume that's a lot of like payday advance stores and you need cash
Mhm.
now shops and things like that. Accounting and tax preparation and travel agencies. Those were other ones.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more, but that's as part of that list.
One of the big ones too is if there's a lot of hosting. So if you're hosting
Hmm.
services of a financial company that's working, they're calling you a fine. It's considered in there. So you better make sure if you're now under this new finder rule, because if I'm not mistaken, this takes effect. They're going to start enforcing it in December. So you better have these things in place by December.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but it's December of 2022 of when the update, which is what they're calling last year's update, takes effect. And so,
I think it's enforceable.
yeah, we've been having a lot of conversations around auto dealerships right now, and working to put together some package to try to help those folks out, because there's a large volume of auto dealers that need help right now. And part of our study, whenever we work through these processes, is seeing what other people are doing. And we can see there are other vendors out there today that are standing up services to help you comply. Um, I know of 2 or 3 other companies.
Mm-hmm.
You can research those on your own. I'm not going to name them for anyone, probably because of my next statement, but I will say that I'm leery of the quality of service just based on the information that they've made publicly available. And, as with anything, when you're trying to build your security program, you're choosing a vendor, make sure you vet that vendor
Yeah.
and they're actually going to get you to a point of compliance and provide those services you need, and really focus on your security, because that's what you should care about the most. And just like Brad just covered in our news article, compliance isn't always security. We're
Right.
big believers in that here. So make sure you find someone that's right for you, regardless of who that is.
Yeah, I'd add to that maybe the lack of information they've made accessible it should be a bit
Yeah.
of a red flag as well. And
Yeah.
we're talking about with this, there is an exception to this if they have less than 5,000 consumer records. There are certain parts, not the entire thing, just certain parts
Mm-hmm.
that they don't have to comply with. So
Right.
it's writing. You have to do a risk assessment. It just doesn't have to be written and include the level of detail. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a person reporting to the board of directors, but you still
Yep.
have to have these other things. So, just make sure you understand what your, expectation is, because we've seen it where, yeah, we use this company and they get dinged because it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
correct.
Right. Yeah. The quality of service wasn't up to the standard, and then you're in trouble
Right.
for it later. So make sure you're covering
But
yourself
it's your program, not theirs.
for sure.
It's your responsibility at the end of the day, right? So,
Yep. Yeah. So less than 5,000 records, right? You don't have to report to the board. It doesn't have to be a written assessment, which is kind of strange to me, but okay. You have to assess yourself in some way or another. I think you are not required to maintain an incident response plan as well, I believe.
it
Um,
was the incident response plan, and I think it was continuous monitoring.
right. Yeah. So,
So,
and like Brad said, we're not going to go through all of the rule today. I think he hit most of that at high level already. It's a pretty standard security program, right? Nothing mind blowing here. Nothing you shouldn't already be doing if you're working on building a security program. I think the main point of today's conversation is to make people aware of the changes and how those changes may affect you. The first big one being there's a whole gang of new entities out there that were no longer required to comply, that are now required to comply as of December of 2022 this year. I think there
yeah,
were some other changes to the program as well,
yeah,
outside of that. So maybe we talk through those for
yeah,
a minute.
yeah. I think the primary one. Well, first they clarified some of the stuff around how you're supposed to protect your information around like
Mm-hmm.
uh, asset management, things like that. But the other
Yeah.
really big one is they now require the qualified individual to report to the board or governing body. And so I like it. We try to get everybody to do that. I think it's a great thing, because ultimately, if you don't get the board buy-in, the whole program's going to struggle. So now they're forcing the fact that, hey, this is best practice. The board needs to be aware so they can make proper business decisions, and you got to show that you've actually done it.
Right. Yeah, I think there's options for people there, right? So that qualified individual can be an internal employee. So if you
Mhm.
have someone that's capable and can meet those requirements, that's acceptable. But you can also work with a third party too. So for like a VCSO, for example, if you have a VCSO that can play and fill that role for you, that will also be acceptable in meeting those requirements.
Yeah. The thing to keep in mind with that is, and this is a quote from the FTC, um, if the company brings in a service provider to implement and service and supervise your program, the buck still stops with you. Company's responsibility to designate a senior employee to supervise that person. If the qualified individual works for a service provider, that service provider also must maintain a program, security program that protects your business. So ultimately,
Right.
you can bring us in and we're going to do everything we can to help you and be that qualified individual. But at the end of the day, we have to be working with somebody on your team. It's not, you don't get to just wash your hands of this by
Yeah,
saying,
it's
hey, I
not a
got a
handoff.
part.
This is going to be a partnership. That's the key word, right? This
Mm-hmm.
isn't, you can completely hand off all responsibility because you're still ultimately responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. And, from experience, the best way to do that is to have whoever you bring in, if you're bringing somebody in, work with a C-level person, preferably, a COO or CEO or the CIO to some degree, even though there's competing interests sometimes with security and information systems.
Mhm.
But, you know, even if they don't work with that person on a day-to-day basis, that there's communication and that, ultimately they report to them.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the other changes, there were updates in specific controls. And again, we'll
Mhm.
urge if you fall under this umbrella to review these in detail for yourself. Obviously, we're here to help you if you need that. But the access controls were changed, as well as authentication and encryption standards were updated. And that's
Yeah.
expected. I mean, they're 20 years old at this point. So
Well, MFA wasn't
nothing
really a
groundbreaking
thing
in
back
there, right? Yeah.
then. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's really in a nutshell all of the updates. There's 5 major updates, right? One um, pertains to the technical controls. Second is who's accountable. Third is who's exempt. Then they do expand the definition of what a financial institution is again to help people determine if or if they aren't included in the umbrella or exempt. So relating back to those first ones again. And then they provided some examples in the rule itself and reference from the Consumer Financial Information Rule.
Yeah. It was really, I would say the big one again is the finders and then just
Yeah.
clarification. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we've
That's it.
got new encryption standards and there's now MFA.
Hmm.
You know, but no, again, I of all the rules and all the requirements that you see out there, it's easy to understand and it makes sense. Which, I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, I think it's good in that aspect too, because if we're realistically thinking about this, there's a lot of new business entities that likely had security as an afterthought now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going to have to make security a part of their core foundation, their core business. And so to get increased buy-in, to get a greater chance of having people be compliant, I like the idea that the framework was developed in a consumable mechanism, so that maybe that learning curve's lessened a little bit, and maybe it gives those entities that greater chance to come in, understand what they've got to do, understand how to find partners to help them, and clearly lay that out so they can implement these changes. Um, and obviously, like if you're starting now and this takes effect in December, you're not going to be compliant by December. If you're just hearing
No.
about this and you're going, "Oh crap, I got to get rolling," but get that ball rolling, and you can get there. It's not going to take you 3 to 5 years, probably a solid 1 to 2 years to get fully where you need to be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but start somewhere.
Yeah, I would say if I could tell you to start one place, start with your risk assessment. The reason being, that's going to
Yeah.
identify all those areas. You're going to be able to put together a roadmap or a plan of action milestones, however you want to look at it. And having that is a much more defensible position than saying, well, we're working on it. If you can say
For sure.
we did a risk assessment, we had somebody come in and do a risk assessment. Here's when we're going to be compliant. Here's our plan. I would much rather be in that position than saying, we've got stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, you need to be defensible here and not negligent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the risk assessment's a good start. Even finding, you know, who your individual is, who's going to be ultimately responsible for this for your company and your business, making sure they have the support, the resources needed, or finding that partner that's going to help you through the process.
That's a great point too. Maybe because that individual that's responsible will probably be the one working the risk assessment. So maybe that's number one, is identifying them and then do the risk assessment, understand where you're at. That's a good point.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot else to talk about this for everybody today. I don't know, Brad, any other points you want to hit on?
No, it's always nice when you get validation that what you've been preaching for years and years is what people are seeing and recommending.
For sure. Happy to see that.
But yeah, no, it's pretty straightforward.
It always is, man. It's never the shiny tools, never the blinky lights. It's always the basics.
Nope.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap up maybe a few minutes early. No, we're almost right on schedule here. How about shout outs? Actually, just a reminder to everybody, we do have Hacks and Hops coming up in October. I think the next tier of tickets are out there and on sale. You go to hacksandhops.com and check that out. It's going to be a great day of education, networking, and all kinds of fun stuff. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. So get your tickets if you haven't got those yet. And yeah, maybe some shout outs. Brad, who you got today?
Come to Hacks and Hops for the beards. All the FRSecure beards. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with our consulting team. We had a training meeting earlier that one of the newer people put together on one of our products that they were like, I really don't understand, and it was awesome to sit in for a couple hours and listen and hear the aha moments as they realize, they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And hearing all the senior people taking time out to, provide feedback and guidance. It's an awesome team. It's so much fun to listen in on those. And I did provide some value. I didn't just distract.
Heck yeah. Can't beat that, man. And we got a great supportive team. That's one thing that, one of the many things that makes our team so special is everybody's always willing to take time out of their day to educate others and help skill others and really just be there to support one another. And that's so meaningful in our environment. It really is. We don't have egos here. I've always talked about that. Let's keep the ego at home and let's work to build each other up.
I mean, honestly, it's thinking of that from an operations standpoint, how supportive everyone is. I don't know if we've had a what is it called? Regretted attrition that hasn't come back in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, negative attrition.
Negative. Yeah. It's like, they're, oh man, that sucks that they left. Can we come back? Well, yes, we told you so.
Yeah, to open arms always.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So.
Yeah, we've been very lucky there, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Team Ambush today. It's the tech team, and mainly like the same thing. Just really impressed with. I just got to set in on a demo of a new tool that one of our analysts had created, and the tool is just fantastic and streamlining processes and being able to quickly gather information. And it was really impressive, and it's awesome just to see us going above and beyond and finding shortcomings that are really industry wide, right? We look in the space that we work in and we see like, okay, this tool doesn't exist. Let's create that tool. And then seeing the team take the time to build those tools and improve our services and improve our efficiencies and just get better and better at what we do. It's amazing. And they never stop doing that. And it's, that's another thing I think that makes us really special here.
Yeah. And, I'll add to that just for the senior people. anybody that's built a tool that has had a new person come in and go, oh, hey, did you think about this? And kind of question or in most cases improve. Nobody has an ego, like you said. It's always like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. I wish I thought
Yeah,
that,
nobody's
right?
defensive over their castle
No,
when they build. It's like we build the castle for everyone. And if you have a vision or an idea for how to improve that castle, hell yeah, bring it on, because we want to be the
right?
best. We want to help each other to be the best. And everyone's ideas and perspective is so important to have that continued growth in a team.
All right. With
Yeah.
I was going to say
Yeah,
with
we're
that.
gearing up for DEF CON
Speaking,
next week too, so I
oh
got to give
yeah,
a shout out there. I'm super excited to not only of like all the great things that Team Ambush is doing, but to get to see everybody next week. It's going to be
that'd be
fantastic, and
awesome.
do some hacking, some CTF, and hopefully learn a few things while we're there, and really maybe come back with a. I know we'll come back with some everlasting memories. That'll be
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I'm going to push myself and do a little bit of red team CTF that I'm not nearly as
Heck
comfortable
yeah,
with. So we'll see how that goes.
it's all right. Everybody be
But
hacking, bro. Join our Discord, and we'll have some fun.
yeah, so cool. With that, I
All
was going to say
right.
we
Well,
need to like do a cheers with the Kool-Aid after our little shout out there.
yeah, we should. I've got my cup here. How about you? Cheers. All
I got to take the lid off mine.
right. Well, thanks to all our listeners. We appreciate y'all tuning in every week, and we'll talk to you soon. Everybody stay safe, and yeah, thanks for listening.